Hello, I'm Jessica. This is Mary Beth. We're going to be working on some of the fabulous bird poses today. And I wanted to offer a few insights and ways to practice to make these bird pose variations more approachable. So let's start facing this direction. Squat down, lift your heels up, and place your hands on the floor. So for starters, the hand placement is quite important and will help or hinder the pose depending. So sometimes we have the hands placed a little bit too close, which makes it way too difficult. So have the wrists be at least shoulder width distance or maybe even a little bit wider to start with. And then we're going to take the knees high up onto the backs of the upper arms. And you're going to practice shifting the weight forward and back into the hands. And at first, maybe the feet stay on the floor. That's totally fine. Eventually, you might want to practice picking up one foot at a time, and then perhaps both feet at a time. So set the feet on the floor and sit down on the floor. Lay down on your back. Sometimes the best way to understand the pose is actually to flip the pose over and look at it upside down. First of all, that means that there's no weight in the hands and the wrists, so we can actually take our time to look at some of the components of the pose. So stretch your arms straight up to the ceiling and flex your wrists back, almost like you're gonna try to do a bird pose on the ceiling there. And then bend your knees into your chest. Wrap your knees out around your upper arms and try to lift your knees higher, higher, higher up towards the outer armpits there. You can lift your head off the floor. That's it. So push with your hands up to the ceiling as hard as you can. Again, like you're gonna try to do your bird pose up on the ceiling. And then by using the strength of your middle area, try to pull the knees even higher up towards the back of the upper arms. Now, you can probably already feel what parts of the body have to work really hard to make this shape, namely the midsection here and the hip flexors. Okay, relax. So we're gonna try to bring that feeling now up into our crow pose. So go ahead and come up again. So see if you can recreate that really sort of concave feeling in the upper body, really sort of curling in towards yourself, squeezing the backs of the upper arms, and then shift your weight forward into your hands. So again, maybe the feet are still on the floor, or maybe one foot is lifting, or perhaps both feet. And then set the feet down on the floor again. So there might be some obstacles to lifting the feet up off the floor. One thing that tends to come up for people is that the rear and the legs tend to be the biggest parts of our bodies. So it can be challenging to sort of get the larger proportion of our body to tip forward over the hands. So in order to help with that feeling, we're gonna take a block and put the tippy toes right on the block there. And so here in this variation, we're giving ourselves a little bit of height so we don't have to lift quite so high up away from the floor. And that might give you a little bit of a better idea of where the center of gravity is going to be for the pose. So go ahead, see if you can come forward. And you have less far to lift up. So the balance could be right there for you and just fine tuning it from the center. Good. Okay, come on down. Another thing that comes up a lot for people is actually a little bit of fear of the pose. I mean, for one thing, your face is sort of headed straight down towards the floor, and we're not used to really balancing on our hands on a day-to-day basis. So that can bring up feelings of fear. So one way to alleviate that fear is actually to bring some blocks or some support to the front of the pose. So in this way, you can sort of build up a stack of blocks that your head can rest on as you come into the pose. That way you know for sure that you're not going to go past that point. So go ahead and place the hands on the floor. Sometimes it takes a little bit of playing to get the right height of the block. Yeah. And then shifting the weight forward, see if we can get the hands up off the floor. Is the block too tall? Whoop. Let's get the block forward. Good. That's it. And so Mary Beth's head is gently resting on the blocks. She has nowhere else to go but right here, so she can practice lifting up her feet up off the floor without that extra fear factor happening. And then with a little more practice, you can move the blocks away. So one more aspect that you might want to play with is there's a couple of different positions for the knees. So some of you might be practicing by placing the knee sort of on the back of the upper arm and balancing it there. And then some of you might be practicing by sort of wrapping the knee around the arm and squeezing the arm bones in. So whichever one you were doing while we did this tutorial together, I want you to try the other one, the one that you don't usually do. So if you were balancing the knees onto the triceps, then take the knees out around and try squeezing the upper arms. And if you were wrapping your knees around and squeezing the upper arms, then I want you to try balancing the knees sort of on the back of the upper arms there. Yeah, good. Great job. And you might feel a difference between the two. You might feel that one's more approachable, one's less approachable. You might feel that one's agonizing and one's delightful. Neither one of them is, strictly correct or incorrect. It's just different ways of practicing and different ways of coming into the pose. So look, neither one is the correct or the incorrect way. About half of you are going to like the first way, and about half of you are going to like the second way. And you don't really know which way that you like better until you try both of them. So try both and see which one gives you more access to the shape and to the pose. Okay, let's look at side crow. So to look at side crow, we want to actually look at the twisting component of side crow. So actually start by laying down on the back again. And then again, stretch the arms straight up to the ceiling. Bend your knees into your chest. Good. Push your hands so hard up to the ceiling that your shoulder blades lift up off the floor, and go ahead and lift your head up off the floor. Then take both of your knees over to your left upper arm. Yes. And feel what it takes inside your body to slide your knees up your left upper arm towards your armpit. Keep pushing the hands up to the ceiling strong and lifting your shoulders and your head up off the floor. Can you feel what muscles you have to use? Yes. Okay. Come back to the center. Take a breath. And then let's do the other side. So stretch the arms straight up to the ceiling, press the hands away, lift the shoulder blades, lift the head up off the floor, and then take your knees over to the right arm. Good. And then use your strength in the midsection of your body to pull your knees even higher up the back of your right upper arm. And then relax. So hopefully we're getting this feeling of the sort of strength of the twist in the midsection in side crow. So the better your twists are, the better the side crow will go, which means it might be helpful to go back and practice your standing spinal twist and your seated spinal twist a bit more to access this pose. So go ahead and come up onto the feet. And then fold forward over the legs. Lift your heels up. And then swing both knees over to the right side. Touch the knees to the back of the right upper arm. And then you can also touch this arm to this hip. So left arm can support the left hip. Start to shift the weight forward over the hands and see if the toes will start to feel lighter. Now, Mary Beth came right into it. Beautiful pose. If the feet aren't coming off the floor quite yet, then here's a suggestion. Bring the feet to the floor again. Again, we can sometimes have that fear factor coming up in the arm balances, mainly because we're not used to balancing on our arms all the time, or we're used to balancing on our legs. So for this variation, we'll take 2 blocks and 1 block for each of the shoulders. So as you lift forward into it, you're going to try to get the front part of your deltoid, or the front part of your shoulder, to touch both blocks, and then that should give you enough leverage to go ahead and lift the feet up off the floor. Good. Okay, come back down for a moment. This does a couple of things. Again, it removes that fear factor out of the pose, and it also shows us actually how far the shoulders have to come in order to balance. A lot of times we sort of linger back a little too far and we're not able to come forward. So yeah, see, look how far forward her shoulders come in order for the feet to lift up off the floor. And so if she's not quite making it to that level, it will be almost impossible to lift the feet up off the floor. Okay, bring the feet down to the floor. Let's do the other side. So on this side, we're gonna show what it's like to take that second arm out of the picture. So first do it with the right arm leaning against the leg. Perfectly fine to use this arm to help support the hip until you have a better feeling for the balance here. Then bring the toes to the floor. Eventually, you're gonna take that right arm a little bit out to the side so that there's a little bit of space between the right upper arm and the side of the body. So go ahead and come into it. So now she's balancing the weight of the legs totally on the left arm, and the right arm is out here free. Yeah? Okay, bring the feet to the floor. Okay. Lovely flying crow. So for this one, we're gonna start by looking at the position and the mechanism in the hips and the legs, and then we'll take it back into the arm balance. So set up with your right leg forward and your left leg back as if you were setting up for a pigeon. Yeah. But this time, walk the hands back alongside the hips so that you're lifting up tall rather than folding forward. So this is a little bit of a strange thing to communicate, and it's probably a little stranger to feel. So see if you can pay attention to this. So imagine you're trying to kick your right foot forward and down into the floor. You won't really be able to see Mary Beth's right leg moving very much, but it's as if she's trying to kick forward and down through the floor. And you might feel that right hip area starting to work and become active. Now, tuck the left toes under and lift the left knee away from the floor. So reaching back through the left foot and kicking forward through the right foot. Just by kicking both feet strong in opposite directions, see if maybe you can balance. Bring right hand to the waist, left hand to the waist, or both. And then just by kicking your feet in opposite directions, see if you can lift up 3 inches higher from where you are now. Oh, hold for 75 breaths. Just kidding, don't do that. And then relax and fold forward for a couple of breaths. Okay. I know how hard that was, but I want you to memorize that feeling so that when we come into flying crow, you'll be able to use the strength of your legs to come into it. So let's do the other side. Switch the legs. So the left leg is forward, right leg is back. And again, walk the hands back alongside the hips. So again, even though you can't see the leg physically moving, it's as if you're kicking your leg forward and down into the floor, and all of those lovely left hip and leg muscles are starting to work. Tuck the right toes under, lift the right knee away from the floor. Kicking the left foot forward and down, kicking the right foot back. See if you can balance one or even both hands to your hips. And then just by kicking the feet in opposite directions, lift up a little bit higher, especially if you're flexible. Find the strength of your legs and lift up. And then fold forward. Whew. And take a couple of breaths to rest. So that mechanism of the right leg kicking forward and the left leg being able to reach back is going to come in very handy in our flying crow. So go ahead and come up onto your feet. I like to come at this from a standing position. So stand right about the middle of your mat there. Bend the knees, reach the arms out. And then cross your right ankle over your left leg like a figure 4 and sit back and sit low. Then bend both of your elbows and touch the backs of the upper arms onto the front of the right shin. Now, bend the standing knee even more and bring your hands flat onto the floor. So now, to the extent that you can kick your right leg forward into both arms is the extent to which the left leg can reach up and back. So even though you may not be able to see it totally happening, Mary Beth is kicking her right leg as hard as she can into her upper arms in order for that left leg to shoot back behind. Okay, come on down. Let's take a look at the other side. So until you can really wake up that feeling in the hips, keep trying that pigeon variation where we were working into the legs. Okay, bend the knees, reach the arms up. Cross the left ankle over the right leg. Good. Sit low and sit back, and then take both of the upper arms, the tricep area, to the left front of the leg. Bring the hands onto the floor. And then start to shift the weight forward, and you're kicking the left leg as hard as you can forward into both arms in order to stretch the right leg up and back. Good. Okay. Come on down. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope this helps to clear up some of the crow pose variations. And thanks to Mary Beth for demonstrating for us today. Happy practicing.